Okay, so are you ready to like dive into something really different today?
I'm ready.
Okay. We're going through this book. It's called Hercolubus or Red Planet by this
Yeah.
guy V.M. Rabolú.
Okay.
And it's a trip, let me tell you.
Mhm.
This book, it doesn't shy away from like bold claims at all. We're
Mhm.
talking cosmic events, ancient myths, even extraterrestrial encounters.
It's interesting the way Rabolú brings all these, I don't know, they seem like totally different things, right? But he brings them all together.
Hmm.
Mythology and spirituality and even like scientific concepts to try to get his worldview across.
Yeah, it's like he's putting a puzzle together
Yeah.
using these like different traditions to paint a picture of a world that's on the edge of some major change.
Yeah.
And right at the heart of it all is this thing called Hercolubus, this huge planet that Rabolú says is heading right for Earth.
Yeah. Hercolubus it's a giant. He says it's a celestial body 6 times larger than Jupiter, just lurking out there at the like edge of our solar system. And Rabolú claims that, well, the reason astronomers haven't discovered it yet is because it's just so massive.
6 times bigger than Jupiter. Wow. Can you imagine? And that's not all. Rabolú connects Hercolubus to some of the biggest, most intense events in like the history of humanity, like disasters.
He's basically arguing that Hercolubus, it's not just passing by, it keeps coming back. It's like a recurring, cosmic event. And he says that Atlantis sinking and probably some other ancient disasters, it was all because of this planet, this massive planet.
Okay, so we've got this planet that's supposedly wiped out like entire civilizations and it's coming back towards Earth.
Right.
But then Rabolú takes it up a notch.
Yeah.
He connects these cosmic events with stuff that we're doing like human actions, specifically our atomic experiments.
Yeah, that's where the book gets really interesting because Rabolú is suggesting that our obsession with atomic energy, especially testing nuclear weapons, it's actually making things worse.
Yeah. He talks about these deep-sea atomic tests and how they're creating cracks in the ocean floor, almost like we're like weakening the Earth from the inside out.
And he says that these cracks are letting the Earth's internal fire escape and interact with the water,
Oh, wow.
which is creating a really dangerous imbalance. And he blames, all the cyclones and earthquakes and stuff, the fact that they're more frequent now. He blames it on that.
He even links these atomic tests to like the Earth's axis shifting, which is a pretty big claim.
Yeah.
Rabolú really paints this very stark image of humanity, just destroying itself. But what really got me was this picture he uses of Hercolubus approaching Earth, and you can see the sun in the background. It's like this visual representation of this two-pronged threat, right? This cosmic force and then our own self-destructive tendencies.
It's powerful imagery. It really underlines how serious this is, at least how serious Rabolú thinks it is. But, it's important to remember we are talking about, one person's interpretations here of history and maybe the future.
Right, of course, yeah. And we'll get into like what he thinks might happen because of all of this. But for now, let's change gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Just when you think that Rabolú's theories can't get any more out there, he brings in extraterrestrials.
This is where the book gets into, well, what some people might call science fiction.
All right.
But Rabolú, he doesn't see it as fiction. To him, these are his own experiences from, his explorations, specifically through this thing he calls astral unfolding or astral projection.
So wait, he's saying that he's traveled to other planets.
Yeah.
And like interacted with aliens all while he was out of his body. Okay, I'm listening. Where did he go?
Well, according to his book, he's met beings from both Venus and Mars. And he's really critical of, how extraterrestrials are shown in pop culture, especially in films. He calls it a total misrepresentation.
Yeah, so he seems to be saying that instead of these scary creatures we always see in movies, that extraterrestrials are, well, at least Venusians, are actually very advanced and kind.
Yeah, that's right. He describes them as telepathic, and they live in a society without money, without hardship, where work is like nothing minimal, and with super advanced technology.
2-hour workdays, restaurants where you just think about the food and it appears, and super advanced technology. So that's pretty nice. Almost like utopia. What else does he say about this supposed Venusian paradise?
He gets into a lot of detail about how they look, what they wear, how they get around. They even have these belts that create, get this, protective circles of fire.
Wow.
And he really stresses their perfect bodies and how peaceful they are. A huge contrast to all the chaos he thinks is happening on Earth.
He makes it sound like Venus is like light years ahead of us.
Hmm.
And not just like with technology, but like how their society is set up and spiritually too.
Yeah.
But how does he explain how he was able to even visit these other worlds?
Oh, well, that's where this idea of astral projection comes in. Rabolú says that humans can learn to separate their consciousness from their physical bodies
Huh.
and then travel to other, like, dimensions, other planets, even interact with beings from those places.
So he's basically saying that anyone can learn to astral project, to like experience these other worlds themselves. That's a pretty big claim.
Yeah, it is. And he does give, like, specific techniques in the book, including using mantras to help with it. He even describes how the Venusian spaceships are designed. He says they're solar-powered and bulletproof. And get this, piloted with buttons.
Wait, buttons? That seems, I don't know, kind of simple for a civilization that's mastered telepathy and like interstellar travel. It makes you wonder about the specifics he's giving. Could these descriptions be symbolic? Like, is he trying to describe complex ideas through imagery?
That's an interesting thought. Maybe Rabolú uses all this detail to make it feel real, to give readers a way to grasp these ideas that are, pretty abstract otherwise. Or maybe it just shows how limited human language is when you try to describe experiences from other dimensions.
Yeah, it reminds me of how like ancient myths use symbolism and allegory to try to explain the natural world or philosophical concepts. But let's get back to these astral journeys.
Yeah.
Is it just about like exploring for Rabolú, or is there something more to it?
Well, that's where this idea of the formula comes in. Rabolú seems to think that these extraterrestrial beings, the Venusians in particular, they're watching us, waiting to see who is working towards a higher level of consciousness.
And this formula, this path to spiritual evolution he talks about, it's all about disintegration, right?
Exactly. He uses this analogy of a tree to describe the ego. The deep roots, they're like our core flaws: anger, greed, envy. And the smaller roots are the negative thoughts and behaviors that come from those flaws. So disintegration is basically getting rid of those negative parts, like you're dismantling the ego.
So it's not just about like external threats like Hercolubus, but also about facing our own inner demons.
Exactly. Rabolú argues that we can't deal with the challenges humanity is facing without first addressing the root of the problem, which is the ego's hold on our thoughts and actions. He thinks this inner work it's crucial for both, individual and collective evolution.
Okay, but how do you even start to dismantle something as ingrained as the ego? We can't just like flip a switch and become, selfless.
He says it's really important to observe yourself, to become aware of your thoughts and behaviors. And he suggests like actively trying to identify those negative patterns, the feeder roots, and then consciously choosing to uproot them.
So it's about awareness and then action.
Yes.
Makes sense. But he also mentions the Divine Mother and that it has a role in this process. What is that exactly?
That's where the book gets into some pretty esoteric stuff. The Divine Mother, as Rabolú describes it, is, well, it's this universal force, a source of love and compassion that can help us with this process of disintegration. He says that by aligning ourselves with it, by calling on it, we can get the strength and guidance we need to break free from our ego.
Like a cosmic helping hand.
Yeah.
Or, quest to better ourselves.
Yeah, basically. And it's interesting, this idea of a divine feminine force helping with spiritual growth. You see it in a lot of different spiritual traditions, but they might use different names or interpret it differently.
Right. So it's not totally unique to Rabolú, but it does make his whole message even more complex. But let's go back to this idea of extraterrestrial rescue.
Yeah.
He really believes that people who master this formula, who get rid of their egos, will be rescued from Earth before Hercolubus shows up.
Yeah, that seems to be what he's saying. He describes these spaceships piloted by these advanced beings that are ready and waiting to evacuate the people who have, reached a certain level of spiritual development.
Wow. It's like a cosmic lifeboat, but you can only get on it if you've done the work. That's kind of a scary thought.
Right.
What about the people who don't believe his teachings or haven't, achieved this disintegration? Do they just get left behind? It's like there's this judgment, like only the people who are spiritually worthy get saved.
Right.
And that seems kind of harsh, especially with how peaceful and compassionate he says Venusians are.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's important to keep in mind we are just looking at one perspective. This is just one guy's interpretation of these really complex spiritual experiences. It's possible that the way he describes it all, it's limited by just being human, you know?
Right. Maybe he's trying to explain these really profound experiences, and he just doesn't have the words. Like, how would you describe a color you've never seen before?
Yeah.
But even if we don't take everything literally, the whole message of changing yourself, it's still powerful, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. When you get down to it, Rabolú's message, even though it's, a bit out there, it's about something we all want, I think, to grow, to become something more. This idea that we have to confront our flaws, to reach for something beyond ourselves. It's a common thread throughout history. You see it everywhere in every culture.
Yeah. And even if there's no giant planet or spaceship rescue mission, this journey of self-discovery, of getting over our own limitations, that's something we can all do.
Exactly.
And who knows, maybe that journey leads us to a different kind of Venus, a world where we've gotten past our limits and created a better reality.
That's a great point. Maybe being rescued isn't about, looking to the stars. Maybe it's about exploring what's inside of us, all those unknown parts of ourselves.
A cosmic journey, but inward. Something to think about for sure.